Hey, it's Jake Mace with JakeMace.com. I'm here in New York City in Manhattan. We're in Chinatown. It's a really cool place. Everyone's out here doing Qigong, Tai Chi, straight sword, Bagua. There's a lot of traditional martial arts being practiced, but sadly it's all the older generation. So I want to inspire you guys out there who are the younger people and the older people to train traditional martial arts and keep it alive. I got a friend of mine who's going to meet us here today and show us some traditional Chinese internal martial arts called Bagua. Some fighting and some form. So let's go meet him. Dad, Jake, what's happening?
Not much, good to see you.
Thanks for being on my YouTube channel.
My pleasure.
You are now an expert in Bagua.
No! Whoa. Tall claims.
But you do practice Bagua.
I'm a practitioner and an instructor.
And you
sure.
teach.
I do teach, yeah.
And you teach here in Manhattan?
I teach here in Manhattan, yeah.
How long have you lived here for?
Actually, I just had my 14-year anniversary living in New York.
I remember back in the day when we were training together,
yeah.
You went from Colorado to New York.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Exactly. Right after.
You've been here 14 years.
14 years.
I'm old.
We're both old.
That means I'm getting older.
It's inevitable, my friend.
Now you're teaching and practicing traditional Chinese Bagua.
Exactly.
Do you have a style? What do you call it?
Yeah, so I train with a teacher here in New York. His name is Tom Bizio. Our particular style is a Liang style Bagua.
What does that mean? Is that somebody's family name?
Exactly. So right, all the styles of Bagua, the names of the styles relate to the family name of whoever basically the disciple.
Like Chen style, Yang style,
Same
Han style,
exactly.
whatever.
Same ideas as in Tai Chi.
So who is Liang?
Good question. So Liang is Liang Zhengpu. Liang Zhengpu was Deng Haichuan, who's the founder of Bagua, Deng Haichuan's last disciple.
Oh, okay.
Probably, arguably, the most famous disciples of Deng Haichuan are Cheng Tinghua and Yinfu, right?
Yinfu's
exactly. Both very famous.
Yeah.
Both, right?
So Deng Haichuan, when did he exist and live?
He's 1800s.
Okay.
I'm not, positive about the dates, but it's actually relatively young.
So he's deceased, but he existed in the 1800s.
Exactly.
And his student Liang, whose your style is based off of his style.
Exactly.
He's also dead now.
Yes, exactly. So we're several generations removed, but not that many. And that
1800s is pretty recent.
Bagua's very young as far as Chinese martial arts go, which is actually good because it was able to draw from many influences.
The three main internal martial arts of China are Tai Chi, Xing Yi, and Bagua.
Yeah, Tai Chi Chuan, Xing Yi Chuan, and Bagua Zhang.
But Bagua is the youngest.
Bagua's the youngest.
Right.
I say Xing Yi's the oldest. There's controversy. Some people say Tai Chi's the oldest. I don't think so.
Maybe we can ask anybody out there in the comments what they think. Which one's the oldest one? Are you a Tai Chi Chuan kind of guy? Are you a Bagua Zhang? Or are you a Xing Yi Chuan?
It's definitely not Bagua. Don't say Bagua. You'll just embarrass yourself on the internet.
Yeah, it's a more recent, modern
without
day
doubt.
style of martial arts.
It's documented. We know Deng Haichuan's, he's a a documented individual, so it's very easy to trace the lineage.
And when you practice and when you teach your Bagua, you're practicing and teaching it not just for fighting and self-defense, but also for health and wellness.
Well, and really that is what any well-rounded internal martial arts should be, right? So Chinese culture uses this idea of threes a lot.
Okay.
You could argue it's rooted in that Taoist saying from the Tao Te Ching, which is from nothing, which is Wuji, is born yin and yang, right? So basically from the one comes the two, from the two comes the three, from the three comes the 10,000 things. Right? So in this case, one is the Tao, two is yin and yang, three is the dynamic interplay of those forces together that creates all of the phenomena in the universe, right? So these threes are all over the place. Santi Shi, right? In Xing Yi, three bodies stance, right? What is that? That's earth, heaven, man, right? Man is this conduit of dynamic interplay between heavenly and earthly energies, just like yin and yang. So it comes in threes. So the same could be said of the priorities of training in internal Chinese martial arts. You do have martial arts applicability. It needs to be combat effective.
But it's not the primary goal.
Well, it's not the only goal.
Not the only goal.
It's three equally shared goals. I think it should be a balanced focus between martial function, health and longevity, just straight, physical maintenance of the body, mind, the energetic systems of the body, etc., and spiritual development. And by spiritual development, this is a tricky phrase in Western culture. A lot of times we associate it with religious connotations, but in fact, from a Chinese medical point of view, the spirit is a very tangible thing. And basically, it's the way that you interact with the world around you. They say that the spirit is expressed with the eyes, it's stored in the heart. It's how you relate with the world around you.
So the three treasures in internal Chinese martial arts, just maybe Chinese martial arts in general.
Any Chinese longevity.
Yeah, are the shen, the qi, and the jing.
Yeah.
How would you define each of these? What is qi?
Good question. Oh, that's a hard question.
Well, quickly, maybe a bare bones crash course. How would you define qi in a short amount of time.
So let's talk about this in general, right? So, okay, it's one thing that you need to understand about Chinese systems is that, and you studied Chinese language, so you know that this is true, their emphasis is on verbs, not nouns, right?
Okay.
The emphasis is on the action and the relationship between things. It's not as much about categories and what each thing is. What this means is that you want to think about jing, qi, and shen not as necessarily static things, but as three related things that, again, have a dynamic relationship. They're always changing and transforming among each other, and you can take snapshots of where they are in time, but that's not an accurate description of what they actually are like in real life, right?
Okay.
So a lot of the reasons why the Chinese practices are kind of have this ambiguity to them is because they leave space for the thing to be alive and changing, right? Jing, qi, shen. Jing is essence, right? We translate jing as essence, and many times you'll think about it, the majority of it comes from your parents. It's like your congenital inheritance.
Yeah.
You can also, some people argue you can add jing through intensive meditative practices and proper diet. And
You can change your jing.
Maybe,
Like
but
somebody
that's
else in West
that's
Dakota saying,
arguable.
change your stars.
Yeah,
You know?
a little bit, but
Kind of.
it's yeah, you maybe, but it's like the
Because
it's-
people, adults especially, hate to think about destiny's been defined by my parents from birth. I could change my fate.
Well, yeah, it's true, but I would argue that that's more of operating at the chi level.
Oh, okay.
So jing is like the physical cards you were dealt with. If you get
Okay.
born without an arm, no amount of willpower is going to regrow that arm, right? Think of jing as what made you into the embryo you were.
Okay.
It's your constitution, essentially.
And how should I apply this to my life as an adult? Like how should this help me?
Good
knowing
question.
that?
Well, let's finish talking about the two. We only have one thing. We got to have qi and shen. Qi is the intermediary. So qi, basically, you can think of qi is what's formed from when we draw a little bit from our. You can think of jing as like the savings account, right? It's easy to spend from savings. It's hard to put back. Qi is like the checking account. Like it's easy to build qi. Oh, I just got to eat a good meal, get a good night's sleep. I got qi.
But for most people, that's very difficult to do.
Well, it's true.
To work out, eat right, and sleep well.
It's tall order.
Yeah, it is.
It's true.
Especially in the modern world.
Yeah,
You know?
but accessible. To rebuild jing is like a years-long, intensive, like you have to be a hermit-style process.
And this is why people love training in the traditional martial arts,
Yeah.
because it's a path to building that chi
Exactly.
and gaining relaxation and energy at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
So
It's
okay,
well-rounded. Well, it cultivates longevity, right?
Right.
It's done. It's a sustainable practice.
So keep going. Where were you going with chi?
So we can think of qi as like the practical nuts and bolts everyday use of the body, right? Then we have shen, which is spirit, which is, as we said before, that essentially that way of interacting with the world, right? These three things all work together. A good example of how kind of spirit is changeable is, and you'll see it in people's expression and in their eyes, is think if you were talking to a friend, having a regular conversation, and they got a phone call and they find out some terrible piece of news. You'd see it, right? Their whole spirit would just shift. It would just change before your eyes.
Which
very
would be the
tangibly.
shen.
Which would be the shen. And it's a two-way conduit. So then that shift in their shen would affect the qi, which in turn might cause something to happen with the jing.
So if you and I were to have an epic
Kung fu battle.
right now, we would be trying to disguise our chi, jing, and shun to get one up, like Jet Li when he fought Donnie Yen and Hero. They were fighting in the mine, and they were trying to disguise the jing, chi, and shun to beat each other.
You want to hide your intent.
My intent.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, sure.
Exactly.
Well, how can we display some jing, chi, and shun in our bagua today? What are you going to show us?
We're going to stick with this theme of threes. We're going to look at three basic moves. So we're going to kind of jump ahead. You know, bagua has many practices.
Sure.
We're going to jump ahead to look at kind of a linear expression of the bagua principles. So
Okay.
the primary, practice of bagua is mostly walking in the circle, right? And that's to develop that curved stepping. And that step is really what drives everything in bagua. It's all about the footwork. However, we also have these linear practices. You could argue they're influenced
And so-
by Xingyi, maybe.
So your linear stepping, your linear footwork is just forward and back, non-circular.
So here's now one of these Chinese fuzzy answers.
Okay.
It appears to be linear, but it feels circular. So it has the quality of curved stepping within an outwardly linear expression. I will say that ultimately these things won't ultimately be truly effective if you don't have somewhat of a background in bagua and you're proficient at circle walking.
Okay.
Has been my experience. Now, someone like you is an exception because you have a lot of prior training, right?
But maybe better to jump up than to drink some Red Bull.
Oh yes, better to jump up. Give it a try, but
this is not what you
It's-
teach people on day one.
no, it's yeah. This is not. Let's say this is not a formal. It's a taste. It's a preview, and so experience it as a preview.
Sure.
Go for it.
And if folks want to train with you in New York, in Manhattan, they can.
Yeah, they can. And
How do they
actually,
get in contact with you?
well, they can email me. Is probably the best.
Okay, what's your email?
New York Shaolin still at gmail.com.
Okay, I'll put it down on the screen there for everybody.
Yeah.
Right?
There's no still.
New York Shaolin at gmail.com.
Yes, thank you. I do group classes and private instruction. But they should also really definitely check out my teacher's website.
Okay.
In internalartsinternational.com.
Okay.
So I trained with a guy named Tom Bizio.
I'll put it down there on the screen too.
Excellent. Phenomenal instructor.
Number one question I get
Uh-huh.
is, Jake, how do I find a teacher that I should train with?
Yeah.
My default answer is, don't judge the style or the techniques, judge the person who's teaching you. And if you morally connect with them, go for it and see what they can teach
Very
you.
important. You have to have a connection. Right?
You're connecting with this teacher you have now.
Very much so. We have these threes again, right? The three critical factors in success as a Chinese martial arts practitioner. Self-practice ethic, number one, most important.
At home practice.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Good teacher, good method. You have all three, hard to fail. You have 2 out of 3, you'll probably succeed. You have 1 out of 3, really hard.
I think a lot of athletes can use that too.
Yeah.
Good coach,
Yep. Good coach, good training
good
method.
fundamentals,
Yep.
and good work ethic.
Yeah.
People are watching right now. BAGUA ZHANG. What does it mean?
BAGUA ZHANG means 8 changes palms. So BAGUA is a reference to the 8 trigrams from the I Ching, the classic of change. It's old philosophical text talking about the nature of change and how it relates to yin and yang.
And ZHANG is the palm.
ZHANG is the palm. So ZHANG basically is a reference to it as a martial arts system.
So it's not BAGUA Shen, it's BAGUA ZHANG.
It's not BAGUA Trend.
For Tai Chi or for Xing Yi.
Tai Chi and Xing are both trend, and I have a theory about this. I think that basically it's a subtle hint that BAGUA ZHANG is meant to be a complementary art to prior martial arts practice.
Oh.
So I think anything that's trend is great fundamental, is potentially really good fundamental training
Like
if it's a good method. I think BAGUA has over time grown into being a very functional, independent method on its own, but classically it did best as a complement to other martial artists.
Sure.
And this is true historically. All of Deng Hai Chuan's students had prior martial arts instruction. That's why
even him.
exactly
Right.
right.
And
Yeah,
so-
he was Lohan. Was
Right.
his original style.
Today we're here
Yeah.
in Chinatown.
We're
Manhattan,
in Chinatown, Columbus Park.
Columbus Park.
Yep.
And you're showing me some of the Liang BAGUA
I'm going to
ZHANG.
show you some Liang style BAGUA ZHANG exercises that can be done standing linearly, and then eventually we'll look at the applications.
The fighting applications.
Exactly.
All right, show me what we're going to do.
So we're going to start with some standing linear exercises. One of the very first exercises we teach our students at all is just to stand here in what we call Wuji. We'll be maybe a little wider than a standard Wuji so that the feet are right underneath the shoulders. One thing that I'm going to talk about with Jake here that will hopefully be useful for you guys that are at home is I'm going to give some of the common corrections that we see with people, and especially Jake and I both, we trained the same Southern Shaolin lineage for many years, trained and taught it. Interestingly, a lot of things probably that Jake's body are going to do as a result of his prior training I also had to deal with. So yeah, you may want to come around and we'll look at a few things here. We want to develop stability even in a narrow position, just like, and you can think of this like a miniature horse stance where the knees, have a slight space between them. One thing that's tricky for almost everyone of an external background, and I've seen this be true of fencers and sprinters and stuff as well, is the sink of the tail. There we go. We call this sitting the qua. It's almost like you're sitting on a little bar stool right under your tailbone. The sink of the tailbone is really critical. Also because it opens up the lower back. So this area we call Ming Men, the gate of life. Ming Men is a pressure point on the Du meridian that runs up the spine, but we're not referring to it in that capacity. We're talking about it as a subtle central hub of the body that is individual for each person. So you can't say exactly where it is, but it's roughly in the area of the 2nd or 3rd lumbar vertebra, but in front of the spine, deep in the core of the body. This is the catalyst. This is where everything is sparked. It's then powered by the legs, but it needs to be expressed through an open and rounded back. So we talk about the round back a lot in BAGUA. Now another way we're going to lever open Ming Men, and this is going to feel a little unusual at first to almost everyone, is keeping the tailbone dropped and actually add a slight feeling of straightening in your legs.
It's going to feel unusual because you're touching my butt.
Sorry.
I'm just kidding.
It's helpful. Remember we talked about this idea of not static positions, but energetic counterbalances. The legs are a perfect example. There's a sinking quality that bends the knees, but there's also an extending quality that straightens the legs and feels like it drives the crown of the skull up towards the sky. There you go. Now, we're also going to add what's going to feel like a slight lean forward in the upper body. Yes, like you're tilted. I sometimes think about this like you're on the edge of a cliff about to dive into a deep pool, right? You could almost just lean and you'd go. So it means that there's no preparation necessary in order to drive forward in step, right? We're always perched. And so this also captures what the feeling of Wuji should be. So Wuji in Taoist cosmology is, we can equate it in Western thought to the moment before the Big Bang. It's a state of nothingness, but it's a state of nothingness filled with the potential to become a universe. What that means is that even standing neutral should feel like you're humming with potential energy to drive forward. So if you sit back into your back, not only does it close Migma, but it removes that sense of being about to drive. Sink the tail a little more. It'll constantly want to creep out, right? Exactly. And now keep this sat, and now add more forward intent in the ribs. One way to think about it is like you're already pushing something. Like if you wanted to move a heavy object, that's much better. And over time, you want to feel this openness, but one thing that can be really helpful to consistently think of is this feeling of inflating the lower back. You don't want to get the curve to go the opposite way, but the vast majority of people are compressed here.
You always see cats breathing to that area.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's almost like the cat area or the tiger area of the body.
That is well, and classically it is. Tigers are associated with hippies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah, it gets complex, right? Yep. Sometimes I think about this as feeling like a rocket that would make a very narrow arc in space, ready to launch off. Good. Now try and let your chest relax a little more. So sometimes we allow the arms to fall what feels slightly forward. That adds to this feeling of rounding in the back. And they talk about raise the back and sink the chest, which is partly a reference to the movement of qi through the small circle of heaven and the central circuits of the body, but it also means that the chest should be relaxed. Exactly. As long as you have a lift at the crown, which you have a very good lift at your crown, it won't slouch you, right? So you can really let the arms feel like they even fall slightly forward. This practice anyone can do right away, and it will super benefit you. Just to hold this, you can build up to holding it for as long as 10 or 20 minutes.
Why don't
and you want to relax.
You and my lovely wife, camera lady,
go
eat some dim sum, and I'll come back and I'll still be
Okay, we'll see you in a half an hour.
Okay.
This is the base of operations. All these alignments stay true all the time.
Okay.
Everything you did in Wuji will be true as we move the body standing and start to drive through space with the steps. We're going to jump right ahead to some standing linear piercing exercises. So we'll start here in this position. Front hand palm up, back hand palm down. And we're going to start with piercing underneath. We can also think about this as a standing version of a posture or a movement that we call sparrowhawk penetrates the forest. Number one, you want there to be a constant drill of the hands. So you don't want to get to the end and flip to palm up. You want that rotation to palm up to be happening the whole time, like gears.
Okay.
You also want the hands to be rubbing and shearing. This shearing quality where you slide along the flesh and the body is super useful for martial applications, and you want to train your nervous system for that to feel like home.
It's like the main weapon for a lot of martial artists.
Oh yeah, it's huge. In Bagua we use the shear constantly. Another thing that's really tricky about this is watch my hand as it goes back in space, especially in relation to the bend of my elbow. It's not much. There's none of this.
Right.
So the hand that retreats still wants to drive forward. Its intent is to drive and wedge. We talk about the wedge a lot. This is critical. So I don't let my hands, like if I can't let the hands be here, I got this big space in the opening. You have to wedge to the center like they're vectoring on towards a vertical line directly in front of my spine.
A lot of folks out there who do Wing Chun are going to think you're doing Wing Chun.
This is a good question. What makes it Bagua? What makes it Wing Chun?
Correct.
It's the body mechanics.
Right.
It's not the position. The point of a method of martial arts is not necessarily to train you positions and moves, it's to create an innate way of moving.
Okay.
And different styles value different ways of moving. Right?
Sure.
This is our first one, Sparrowhawk Penetrates the Forest. And why is it called Sparrowhawk Penetrates the Forest, you might ask?
Yes, why is it called that?
It's called Sparrowhawk Penetrates the Forest because the hawk's special ability from a martial perspective is to shrink and expand the body in the way that it shrinks itself to get through a hole and then expands as it comes out the other side.
Because when you're doing your Xing Yi Chen, do you have Sparrowhawk in that too?
We do have Sparrowhawk and Xing Yi as well.
Right.
Exactly. What's the shrinking of the body? Here's the shrink here as it enters the hole. What's the expansion of the body? So in a way, inside the core of your torso, it feels like it compresses and expands, compresses and expands, compress, expand. And it's subtle. You don't want to force that, right? You shouldn't make yourself do it this way. But if,
Not right here.
Yeah, exactly. If you maintain the principles, you'll be fine. Now, another thing to talk about is to keep that wedge and to maintain the forward alignment with both the forward drive of both hands, you obviously have to use your body. Right? So
how much hips are inside this?
This is an excellent question. So
am I turning, is this too much hips? Am I doing
that
this
is a
way?
little too much hips.
But if I do this, I'm not doing any hips at all.
Exactly. So here's how I recommend thinking about it. Feet knees and greater trochanter, which is this bony part on the outside of the top of your thigh bone, these are locked like in a frame.
So I need to be
Not
able to turn
locked,
this without moving
right?
the bottom.
Essentially.
Kind of.
But everything from the qua up. So the qua is a Chinese anatomical term.
Okay, so you want the qua moving too.
Yeah, so we want to fold the qua, we say, which is like wringing out a towel, right? If I take a bigger position, you'll be able to see clearer. Sorry, these may not be the perfect pants
Yeah,
for it.
just take your pants off and you can show us the position.
It's like another Tuesday in Central Park. All right, so the fold of the qua is this diagonal twist into the hip.
But your knees aren't coming outside your foot.
No.
Right, so when you come back into me,
So
your knee doesn't go outside your foot.
No, the intent of the feet, the knees, and again, even the top of the thigh is forward.
So would you say right now, if you go back to the right leg, all your power is building on this leg right here?
Yeah, this leg is full, this leg is empty. So
Yeah,
this
yeah.
leg should feel ready to step,
Sure.
right?
Just like in a baseball swing or a golf swing.
Yeah.
You're kind of keeping that power and then pushing off.
Or like external Chinese martial arts. Oh, does this look familiar? Boom!
Exactly. Yeah.
Boom, right? But it's all the same principles, but you know, we really want to drill out the organization. So
Sure.
it's that in miniature here, right? But no weight shift. So we're not letting ourselves move laterally side to side. Our spine should be like a barber's pole, vertical, that just drills in space, right? So see how there is spiral in my legs. I don't want to disconnect from the power
But
of
it's
the legs.
not a spin out of the knees.
It can't take the intent of the hips at
Sure.
all off forward. And here's another thing that happens is the intent of the hips is forward. But if you look, in order to use proper body mechanics, the angle of actual facing is slightly off.
Because you're sending the energy into the front. Yeah.
Intent is not always a perfect match with external shape. The
Sure.
intent is more important than the shape to some degree, but if the shape is too off, you'll never have the right intent anyway, right?
Sure.
If I think I'm intending forward and my hips are going over here, I'm going to be stuck. I like to think of it, everything from the qua up spirals, everything from the qua down stable and forward. And that will usually get you to be the right place. In truth, everything from the bottoms of the feet to the top of the head are spiraling and counter spiraling. But if you can think about it that way, then you're set.
Hey, you know what that I might do?
What's that?
I might have this be just its own video on Bagua standing and general martial arts fundamentals of standing.
I think it's great. I mean, this exercise will always get back.
And then-
Seriously, it's huge.
Exactly, and then we'll have a link on this video to go to the next part 2, which will be our
Yeah.
movements.